Young girl, beware. Do not use the magic powder. Your thoughts are evil, and they will become more evil.
Quiet, old fool! I know what I'm doing! The medicine man was right, Apache Chief. Your 50 feet of good are now matched by my 50 feet of evil!
The most pivotal moment in the history of DC Comics supervillain Giganta was right there in a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. But I should back up a little bit. You may be wondering, who am I? Who is this unseen but undoubtedly very handsome man speaking? You may be thinking,
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm
Solomon G, aka Solo. I write and review stories about giants and tiny people because someone sure needs to. Today I want to discuss the history and the promising future potential of Giganta, a longtime foe of Wonder Woman. Giganta is sometimes a former gorilla, but sometimes not, with the superpower to grow really tall. She first appeared in 1944 in Wonder Woman number 9, as a bereaved gorilla caged at a zoo who took a little girl hostage. After she escapes her cage and, quote, mows down her opponents with a human club, Giganta fled through the woods and interrupted Dr. Zeul's class at Holiday College. Wonder Woman saved the day and rescued the little girl. Then Dr. Zeul used an electronic evolutionizer to turn Giganta into a human being, as one does. Giganta resumed her fight with Wonder Woman, and their struggle damaged the evolutionizer, causing it to devolve an area extending for several miles around the college to a state of being equivalent to some 60 million years ago. This is where the author's concept of evolution was a bit off. Merriam-Webster defines evolution as descent with modification from pre-existing species, or cumulative inherited change in a population of organisms through time, leading to the appearance of new forms. Thus, evolution is a biology term. However, the author had his characters, air quotes, evolve from one time period to another. In one instance, they went from a golden age, presumably the Garden of Eden, to ancient Greece. So Zeul's evolution machine not only changed living organisms, but also sent them through time. For a reader in 2025, it was a peculiar take on evolution. Let's take a moment to discuss the creator of Wonder Woman. Dr. William Moulton Marston created Wonder Woman during the golden age of comic books, using the pen name Charles Moulton. Dr. Marston's anonymity was short-lived. The publisher issued a press release identifying Dr. Marston as the Wonder Woman author less than a year after the very first Wonder Woman comic hit newsstands. Dr. Marston lived in a literal menage a trois, that is, a household of 3. He resided in a home with his wife, Elizabeth Holloway Marston, and his lover, Olive Byrne. He had children with both women, and after Dr. Marston's death, the 2 women stayed together for the rest of their lives. Before creating Wonder Woman, Dr. Marston earned his PhD in psychology from Harvard University. With his wife's assistance, he designed a systolic blood pressure deception test, a component of modern polygraph tests, popularly known as lie detectors. It is important to highlight that such air quotes lie detectors are pseudoscience. The systolic blood pressure deception test and lie detectors as a whole are not reliable tools to determine truth. Despite its unproven reliability, Dr. Marston leveraged his invention for personal gain. This included a shaving razor's ad campaign, which claimed that Marston's lie detector proved Gillette blades were, quote, vastly superior. In October 1940, Dr. Marston was interviewed about comic books in Family Circle, and this article caught the attention of Charlie Gaines, founder of All American Publications, which later merged with the sister company and became DC Comics. Gaines needed credentialed professionals to give his comics their stamp of approval, so he put Dr. Marston on an editorial advisory board. Dr. Marston convinced Gaines that a female superhero was what All American needed. Thus, Gaines gave Dr. Marston, then in his late 40s, an opportunity to create his own comic book character. So Dr. Marston developed Wonder Woman, who first appeared in All-Star Comics number 8 in late 1941. Before examining his writing, it is important to stress that while Dr. Marston was a smart man, he was not a subtle writer. He had a perspective shared by fictional author Garth Marenghi.
I know writers who use subtext, and they're all cowards.
It may sound rude of me to claim that Dr. Marston was not subtle when he put pen to paper. In that case, let me provide a little evidence that he was I'll call him a straightforward wordsmith. There was a U.S. Army officer in Wonder Woman issue number 1 who was accused of being a traitor. He was later exonerated because an enemy agent called Baroness Paula von Gunther had hypnotized him. And what, pray tell, was the name of this loyal soldier who was in fact not a traitor? Captain Loyal. Additionally, Dr. Marston created an overweight young lady to serve as Wonder Woman's friend. This friend was a college student who really liked candy, so what did he name her? Etta Candy. Then he repeatedly gave her dialogue stressing just how much she enjoyed sweets, like wishing icicles were candy. Overall, her depiction was ham-fisted. Most notably, Dr. Marston stated in print on multiple occasions that the world would be better under loving feminine domination. This idea appeared on many occasions in Wonder Woman stories. In one instance, a king implored his wife to rule over him. In another issue, a loyal subject lamented that Earth rebels did not know the joy of obeying a loving queen. Etta Candy noted that a leprechaun learned submission, and that was the important thing. Finally, the end panel, in what I believe was the last comic ever written by Dr. Marston, had Queen Hippolyta, Wonder Woman's mother, declaring the only real happiness for anybody is to be found in obedience to loving authority. Also, I must mention that Dr. Marston was insistent on portraying Wonder Woman and others in bondage or in scenes seemingly catering to BDSM practitioners. For instance, Amazons dressed as deer and were pretend skinned, then put in an enormous pie tin. Sorority pledges were spanked while Etta Candy ate candy. Wonder Woman placed a ring of a metal chain in her mouth. One girl spanked another with a tennis racket. Wonder Woman told a man to be quiet or Mama Spank. Women with bound hands bent over and ate like household pets do from trays on the floor. Wonder Woman was tied up in ropes and thrown in a trunk. Wonder Woman donned a leather mask which covered her entire face, etc., etc. In fact, it is difficult to find Golden Age stories that do not have Wonder Woman tied up. Dr. Marston advocated for the liability of lie detectors without sufficient evidence to support his position. The eagerness he demonstrated while promoting unproven theories probably played a role in his failure as a professor. He had difficulty finding and keeping a job in academia. However, he was a passionate advocate for women's rights and for recognizing the achievements of women. To give only one example, he paid tribute to many important women by dedicating a section to them in each Wonder Woman issue. His creation, Wonder Woman, became a lasting symbol of equality and feminist principles. Unfortunately, Dr. Marston died at the age of 53, and much of what made Wonder Woman unique was lost. As far as Giganta herself, the original creator did not use her very often. She only appeared twice in Dr. Marston's stories, the first time in Wonder Woman number 9, and the second in Wonder Woman number 28, in which she was a founding member of Villainy Incorporated. Initially, Giganta was merely a female brute, strong but without superpowers. She did not have the ability to change size, and would not for many decades to come. Additionally, Giganta was not Dr. Marston's only 8-foot-tall woman. He also created Maria, an exceptionally large woman from Mexico who, like Giganta, appeared in 2 of his stories. After Dr. Marston's death, Giganta was not seen again until 1966 during the Silver Age. This revision kept many original details, but added Dr. Psycho. Dr. Psycho helped Dr. Zeul evolve the large-ape Giganta into a statuesque human female. However, she still could not change size. Her hair color was also different during this go-around, as she was a blonde, not a redhead. In the 3 decades between Giganta's first appearance in 1944 and the creation of Challenge of the Super Friends in 1978, Giganta appeared only 4 times. Less than 5 appearances in over 30 years does not indicate strong demand. A tall woman who used to be a gorilla did not resonate with readers. Giganta could have fallen into obscurity, like Blue Snowman or Zara, Priestess of the Crimson Flame, from where she could be pulled out of the mothballs whenever DC needed a deep-cut reference to please hardcore fans. However, an unknown person decided to make Giganta a giantess in a Saturday morning cartoon made by Hanna-Barbera. The new superpower made Giganta visually interesting and much more important at DC Comics and in popular culture. That's not to say she is important as top-tier DC characters like Catwoman and Harley Quinn. Those supervillains have proper backstories, their own comics, their own movies, and in Harley Quinn's case, their own animated series. Giganta is not at that level of fame, but she could be. Let's go back and examine a critical day in early 1978. The first 2 seasons of Super Friends starred famous DC superheroes Batman and Robin, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, plus brand new characters Marvin, Wendy, and their companion Wonder Dog in the first season, then the Wonder Twins Zan and Jaina in the second season. However, the superheroes did not face off against their regular opponents. Lex Luthor, Superman's primary antagonist, was not heard or seen, nor were the sworn enemies of Batman or Wonder Woman. Instead, the superheroes dealt with aliens and mad scientists. It was not until the third season, in 1978, after the show was renamed Challenge of the Super Friends, when a decision was made to add reoccurring supervillains. They formed the Legion of Doom. Side note, even though the heroes would now fight their regular foes, it was decidedly non-violent combat compared to the comic book source material. No one kicked or threw a punch at their opponent. Instead, they merely grappled or tossed each other around. Along with supervillains, 3 original superheroes became regulars. They were Apache Chief, Black Vulcan, and Samurai. The trio had been created for the second season to add diversity to the Super Friends, but they were underdeveloped. Of the 3, only Apache Chief's origin story was ever shown. In early 1978, character designer Alex Toth drafted concept art which showed the precursors to the Legion of Doom. They were the Legion of Evil, led by Dr. Savannah. This original lineup did not include Giganta, but did include a few villains that were later dropped, because rival studio Filmation controlled their animation rights. Due to the conflict over animation rights, the roster of supervillains was changed, and they were renamed the Legion of Doom. It is at this point that Giganta was added. Alex Toth drew a reference sketch of Giganta on March 21st, 1978. So we know that the decision to add Giganta to the Challenge of Super Friends was made between January 1st, the earliest day when the Legion of Evil sketch could have been drawn with 1978 on it, and March 21st, when Toth made the Giganta drawing. That decision, presumably made by a Hanna-Barbera producer, would have a lasting impact on popular culture. Such an event is worthy of dramatic recreation. Hear me, primordial forces of creation. I, an as yet unidentified executive at Hanna-Barbera, will now dramatically alter the status of a little-known Wonder Woman villain. From this moment forth, the history of Giganta will be changed. No longer will she be an evolved gorilla. Mwahaha! Except in the comic book adaptation, Super Friends issue number 30, which combines the 2 different origins. Psst, hey boss, don't forget John Byrne's time on Wonder Woman comics. Oh, okay. And disregarding the John Byrne Wonder Woman run, when she was a sickly human, then a gorilla. There's also going to be a Justice League cartoon in a few decades, which... And overlooking the brief reference in the Justice League animated series. Anyway, that's not the important part. Let's get to the main show. Witness me, Corona, as I reach back to the dawn of time and change continuity. And thus it came to pass, from that moment on, Giganta would be a giantess for all time, disregarding a few pesky exceptions. End of dramatic recreation. Artistic license was employed in that recreation, as there is no available information concerning the decision to include Giganta. Creative producer Iwao Takamoto appeared in the credits for Super Friends. But in his biography, he did not discuss character selection. Instead, he wrote about Super Friends' popularity with viewers and its infamy with the editors at DC Comics. The Ultimate Companion to Super Friends reported that Giganta's origin was retold and that she was given the power to grow, but the book did not identify why that was done or who made the decision. The decision had already been made to give Apache Chief the power to grow 50 foot tall in the previous season of the Super Friends. My guess is that someone looked at the villains' roster and decided they needed more women. The good guys had 2 women, Wonder Woman and Jaina. However, after removing characters from the original lineup, the only woman left among the bad guys was Cheetah. so Giganta's inclusion may have been intended to provide more female representation with 2 women on each side. And for whatever reason, they wanted Apache Chief to have an evil counterpart with the same powers. I do not know why Apache Chief needed an archenemy, but Black Vulcan and Samurai did not. Someone researched DC supervillains and found a woman named Giganta who did not have the power to grow, but did have an appropriate name. So they added Giganta to the Legion of Doom and gave her a superpower. After the single season of Challenge of the Super Friends, Giganta was not seen in subsequent seasons, with the exceptions being 2 Gleeks Are Deadlier Than One, and a non-speaking cameo in Revenge of Doom, both from 1983. Those 2 episodes were part of the so-called Lost episodes, which originally aired only in Australia, but eventually showed up in America. Giganta also appeared in live action during 2 TV specials, called Legends of the Superheroes, on NBC, which aired in January 1979. The idea of Giantess Giganta had been planted into the minds of many via the Challenge of the Super Friends. That could have led to immediate reappearance of Giganta in DC Comics with her new power. However, it is always darkest before the dawn. After the Super Friends, Giganta disappeared completely for almost 2 decades. In 1985, DC began publishing a new comic series called Who's Who, the definitive directory of the DC Universe. These alphabetically organized issues gave biographical details on DC Comics heroes and villains, plus supporting characters. Despite the claim to be a, quote, definitive directory, unquote, Giganta was not listed in Who's Who, even though she'd been a part of Wonder Woman comics for 40 years at that point. Giganta also did not appear in subsequent Who's Who updates, which were released in 1987, 1988, and during the 1990s. Apparently, after DC's company-wide Crisis on Infinite Earths event, a choice was made to remove Giganta from existence. In 1987, George Perez revamped Wonder Woman and re-emphasized her connection to Greek mythology. It was a fun new take, but did not include Giganta. It would be 2 decades until John Byrne brought back Giganta in Wonder Woman Volume 2, Issue 126, in October 1997. Byrne merged Giganta with scientist Dr. Zeul to become Dr. Doris Zeul. Note the different spelling. This Dr. Zeul suffered from a fatal disease, and a few issues after her appearance she attempted to transfer her mind into Wonder Woman's body. This attempt failed, and in desperation an assistant put Dr. Zeul's mind into a gorilla. Byrne did not want to, or was unable to, explore the potential of Giantess Giganta. But thankfully, Gorilla Giganta did not last long. In December 2001, more than 20 years after Challenge of the Super Friends, Giganta appeared as a giantess. This issue did not explain how she got superpowers. Instead, a small text box claimed that the secret behind Giganta's transformation would come in upcoming issues. Sure enough, issue 180, published in June 2002, contained a single page showing Gorilla Giganta abducting a comatose strong woman called Olga, who apparently had superpowers. Somewhere off panel, Giganta switched minds with Olga and became a leopard pattern wearing giantess. It was a rushed explanation, to put it mildly. To the best of my knowledge, DC never provided an explanation for Olga's growing ability. A text box in August 2006 merely stated that Dr. Doris Zeul transferred her consciousness into the body of a size-shifting circus strongwoman, as one does. Emerging from obscurity, Giantess Giganta began popping up all over the place. She fought a number of superheroes, not just in Wonder Woman comics, but also between the pages of the all-new Autumn, Blue Beetle, Doom Patrol, and a backup Metal Men short story, Justice, a non-canonical miniseries, Justice League of America, Secret Six, The Flash, Trinity, and in company-wide events such as Final Crisis and Infinite Crisis. She finally got an entry in the replacement to Who's Who called the DC Comics Encyclopedia, published in 2004. Similar to Who's Who, this book was called a, quote, definitive guide, unquote, but it still got the information about Giganta's first appearance wrong. This encyclopedia, both the 2004 and the 2008 editions, mistakenly claimed that Giganta first appeared in 1997, within the pages of Wonder Woman Volume 2, Issue 125, when in fact Giganta first appeared much earlier in Wonder Woman Volume 1, Issue 9 from 1944. Apparently, a DC Comics definitive means containing erroneous information or incomplete. Remember that the original version of Giganta only appeared in 4 comics between her creation in 1944 and her animation debut in 1978, less than 5 times over 3 decades. Contrast that statistics to the modern era in which Giganta appeared 7 times in the all-new Autumn. That's more in 1 comic run alone than during all the Golden and Silver Age. There are many reasons why a writer might choose Giganta to include in their DC comic book or show. The giant character is noteworthy and visually interesting. It looks cool when Wonder Woman ties up the enormous Giganta with the golden lasso and carries the supremely statuesque women through the air. A hero like Wonder Woman can ride on Giganta's shoulder, or a villain like the Joker can do the same. A giantess poses a deadly threat to heroes without super strength, like when she and Black Canary fought. Furthermore, this ability enables Giganta to pose a credible physical threat to super strong heroes. Golden Age superheroes occasionally wrestled circus animals such as gorillas or elephants, but modern superheroes lift tanks and can survive nuclear explosions. Therefore, an 8-foot-tall woman does not come across as a credible threat to modern powerhouses. A 50-foot-tall woman, though, is a different story. Furthermore, on occasion, nods are made to certain fetishes. For example, creators of early 2000s animated series The Justice League recognize that some folks appreciate a giant woman.
The name's Giganta.
Appropriate.
It's not a problem for you, is it?
Quite the opposite.
Allow me.
This just gets better and better.
A parademon commented on Giganta's bosoms in Villains United. Author Gail Simone decided that Giganta should swallow the Ryan Choi version of the Autumn in the all-new Autumn issue number 3. Blue Beetle author John Rogers thought that people online in, quote, weird chat rooms, unquote, might find a giant woman enticing. A 3-page-long Metal Men scene in the back of a Doom Patrol comic explored how a person's libido could be stimulated if a giant woman lost her top. Most recently, a heroine choked Giganta with a lasso, then commanded her to grow. Animators made Giganta content for foot fans as well. A director may want an attractive lady to step on Superman. What are they to do? Why, put Giganta in the animated film, of course. That was fun, but wouldn't it be more exciting if she was barefoot? So they do it one more time. That was great. So the powers that be request another stomp scene. Still barefoot, of course, but this time Giganta steps on Batman to keep it fresh. Not enough. We need one more scene, but with lots of barefoot stomping this time. That'll do it. As demonstrated, multiple creators emphasize the physical appeal of a giantess. However, she also practiced the subtler art of romance. Giganta got the opportunity to express romantic interest beyond just chasing after uninterested Steve Trevor, who only pines for Wonder Woman. The first romance actually appeared on TV during a short live-action variety show, also made by Hanna-Barbera, which aired on NBC in January 1979. Legend of the Superheroes turned Giganta and the Ray Palmer version of the Autumn into a couple.
Well, forgive me. I simply must ask you this question. Considering the difference between you, what about children?
Ain't no problem. We're both crazy about kids.
No. That's not what I meant. What I'm trying to say is, are you planning to adopt?
Presumably, the producers thought it'd be funny to pair the tiniest man with the biggest woman. Folks can buy this special on DVD, but don't bother. It's not funny, and the special effects were pitifully low budget. A year later, Giganta yearned for Gorilla Grodd's attention within the pages of the Super Friends comic book adaptation, issue number 30 from March 1980. Decades later, she expressed affection for the Flash. In Final Crisis issue 1, Dr. Light claimed he had a date with Giganta. In an ambush bug, Giganta was shown walking arm in arm with Chemo. But I think, at least I hope, both of those air-quote relationships were non-canonical. The most developed romance was between Giganta and Ryan Choi's Autumn. With the exception of a brief bout of mind control caused by a cancer god, that sort of thing happens in comics, this romance was relatively long-lasting. A year after the All New Autumn had been cancelled, the relationship was still going strong, as Giganta mentioned she was dating Ryan Choi inside the pages of Wonder Woman number 36. Alas, this romance ended when Deathstroke killed Ryan Choi in 2010. The whole event was muddled and unfocused. In Titan's Villains for Hire Special Number 1, the issue in which he died, Ryan Choi was dating a woman called Amanda, and her name, not Doris, Zeul, or Giganta, was the last thing he said before he died. Wonder if there was a prior story in which Giganta and Ryan broke up? Or was Giganta merely mistaken in the Secret Six comic, thinking she was in a relationship with Ryan Choi? Were the different comic book authors mistaken? Who knows? Nonetheless, Giganta took revenge on the man who paid Deathstroke to kill Ryan Choi. Gamers have been exposed to Giganta in a few games. They could battle Giganta in DC Universe Online and LEGO Batman 3, or play as Giganta in LEGO Batman 3 and Scribblenauts. Stories with Giganta have been written for kids as well. Plus, she showed up in both versions of the DC Superhero Girls. Per this 2014 comic, the background of Giganta is that she once suffered from a blood disease, became a brilliant doctor, devised a cure which gave incredible power but diminished her intellect. This appears to be her costume and the origin story currently used at DC. Giganta is somewhat popular. I'm not saying that because I like the leopard skin wearing villain. If I just wanted to make videos about characters I like, then I'd be talking about Blue Devil. Oh, my sweet prince. Someday the world will love you as much as I do. No, it is not just my appreciation for Giganta that made this video. She has a certain level of popularity and recognition with the general public. People can read Giganta stories to their kids, enjoy her in reruns from a number of animated shows, play as or against Giganta in a few video games, and watch her in a regrettable TV special. Furthermore, Giganta is currently active in Wonder Woman comics released this year in 2025. Nonetheless, Giganta has never had her own comic and has never been given proper development. Too often she was used for a brief combat scene, then quickly disappeared. No one has crafted the definitive Giganta story. It's high time that changed. Accordingly, I propose that DC Comics commission a miniseries, 6 issues or more. An interesting story could be built using existing ingredients. No need to recreate the wheel. Animators have already leveraged their creativity to imagine Giganta as a robot.
Demonstration begins now, Trevor. Behold Giganta.
And as a sleeping giant at Themyscira, the Amazon's island home.
Cider, Princess Diana. Oh, great. He woke up Giganta.
No need to deviate that much from what has already been established. Keep the gross superpower, ditch the gorilla origin, and slowly reintroduce a romance with Ryan Choi. He is alive again in DC's current continuity, so there's no requirement for necromancy. I humbly suggest that she be given a weakness, a limitation which humanizes her. Then pair her with Ryan Choi, throw an interstellar portal at them during a battle within a crowded city, and exile the two to a hostile planet along with some random bystanders. Once there, Giganta will use her medical expertise to treat the hapless bystanders, while the Autumn will use his scientific expertise to find a way back to Earth. In the process, the Autumn learns about Giganta's tragic backstory, and they bond over their shared mission to return home. There is a little downside to this proposal. Giganta's background has been told and tweaked and retold in small text boxes or brief lines of dialogue, without much elaboration or frankly much effort. There's no sacred backstory to worry about. The only way forward is up. If reimagining Giganta proves unpopular, then DC could quietly disregard this effort and never reference it again. Whatever happens, I hope this character gets more attention in the future. Until then, I will leave readers with 2 reading recommendations. I liked her romance in the All New Autumn, and enjoyed that relatively short-lived 18-issue-long series. So I would recommend the All New Autumn plus the 3-issue story arc, Giants War, and Wonder Woman issues 66 through 68. That's it for today, folks. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. If you're over 18 and would like to read editorials, interviews with artists and authors, and written reviews, then hop over to thereshegoes.net. I'll see you there.